Welcome to a jubilant Clyde FC podcast, sponsored by Tony Flynn Mortgages. Tonight we are delighted to be able to discuss a Clyde League victory for the first time since August the 13th. It wasn't pretty, but do we care? No, 100% no is the answer to that question. Joining me to look back at Saturday's action is Mr. Graham Murray. Welcome, Graham. How are you?
Obviously, a lot better than I was the last time I appeared on the podcast, and I think that was just after we changed managers. So a lot happened before that, lots happened since then, but obviously we're talking tonight positively.
Yes, so let's talk Clyde, and more importantly, let's talk a Clyde victory in a huge match that was, at least to date, the biggest match of our season. And I don't think many Clyde fans or even Peterhead fans would disagree with that synopsis of it. And it was a match that would, thankfully, see Clyde open up a 3-point gap on the 10th placed team, Peterhead, which is effectively 4 when you bring the goal difference into consideration. So it did finish Clyde 1, Peterhead 0, thankfully. So, Graham, we'll come to your kind of overall feeling post-Saturday. It's just really good to get that monkey off our back, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, obviously there was a lot of relief because there was a lot of expectation onto the game, because we're kind of always glass half full. This will be the week. And some of the performances were better than what we put out on Saturday, and we've either drawn a game or lost a game. So we've came away from some games disappointed, but with some optimism to aligned with it. And then the next week it's not kind of followed that up as well. So, but it's been a dreadful run. So much like the game up at Balmoor, probably wasn't a game that either team deserved to win. A game completely devoid of much quality. There was a couple of bits of quality we'll come on to, but much like the game up at Balmoor, two teams really, really low in confidence, scared, and unlike the result up at Balmoor, we took our chance to get the goal. Peterhead never took their chances, and we ultimately came out the victors. And it's important as well that we get that. Obviously, we'll talk about it's important how we build upon it. But even a draw at this stage of the season, knowing that we've got to go back up there, it probably wouldn't have been a great result for us.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's only so much you can say about the quality of football on show. It wasn't pretty. It was nervy from the off. I don't think either defences in particular settled at all in the match. I think we maybe grew into it a wee bit as the match progressed defensively. But again, we'll maybe come on to that. It lacked quality, but it didn't lack entertainment, just purely for the amount of goal-scoring chances and clear goal-scoring chances at that for both teams. On another day, Graham, it could easily have finished two or three each. Quite simply, I thought. What do you think, though, went well for us? Take, for instance, in the first half, and on the flip side, what didn't quite work for us?
I think Peterhead created one of the first chances of the games where they hit the bar from, I think it was a cross-come shot, and then we kind of grew into the game, and that was kind of driven forward by the outstanding play of Curtis Roberts, who definitely was a plus point from the game. I thought he was outstanding and easily the man of the match. But the chances that seem to be getting created seem to be from errors, and in some cases some uncharacteristic errors on our part. Some players that have been very reliable for us for a good few games, really having performances that kind of were pretty much of a surprise to us and creating a lot of problems for ourselves. So the kind of early initiative that we did have and we did create was kind of not taking the chances. I'm looking at the Kyle Doherty header, that I think if it goes 1 inch either side of the defender, it's a goal because he keeps it down underneath the bar, but it hits the defender, probably the only place it could hit him. And we get a wee bit more anxious from that point of view. We start making, as I said, uncharacteristic mistakes, and they grow back into the game as well. And I thought they finished the half the better. We realised that we had to make a change, but I was quite happy, to be fair, that it was goalless at half time.
Yeah, I think we were certainly lucky the way the first half progressed to take it in level at half time. And it was frustrating. I actually thought that I think we created we had 3 attempts at goal, good attempts at goal. You mentioned Kyle's header that was blocked. I think you said at the time it was the only place that he could put it that the defender could get to it. And it just seemed to be the way our luck goes. Martin Rennie, I think, lashed one agonisingly wide just shortly after from the edge of the box after a good bit of play. And I think, again, Kyle had a kind of half volley over from the edge of the box. Not what you would class as clear cut, but what we were doing, though, was we were getting into good positions and getting shots away at the goal. And that was without really starting as well as we have in our most recent fixtures, the home fixture against Dunfermline and even away to Airdrie.
Yeah, and I think those particular performances were built upon a solid foundation at the back. Now, granted, Peterhead's provided a different type of opposition in regards to the physicality of them. And I think, I'm not sure if some of the Clyde players just looked at them in the warm-up and got a little bit anxious there, because I certainly did, looking at some of the frames on the boys. But it just looked to be that the game was bypassing the midfield, and both defences were quite charitable, shall we say, and affording opportunities to the other teams. So no lack of effort from any of the players, but there just seemed to be that cloud hanging over the whole pitch. I know it was raining, but that whole cloud about, any mistake could be fatal, and by trying too hard not to make a mistake, then mistakes were coming. So it was one of these games where the solid foundation that we built up in the last 2 games defensively, it wasn't, and it's surprising under a Jim Duffy team, but we looked a little bit ropey at the back, but so did they.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned it, and we both mentioned it. We lived a charmed life for a solid 20 minutes, I think, in the first half, and the build-up to half-time. The frame of the goal was rattled. I actually forgot about the kind of cross-come shot that flicked off the bar and away to safety as well. I think that's not even taking into consideration probably the biggest chance of the half, even including Kyle's chance for ourselves, was what was a near open goal opportunity passed up for the Blue Toon. I think it was Fosu who took the ball past Neil Parry, who was effectively playing a kind of sweeper keeper, if you want to call it that, which I would dare say is not something he would be too keen on doing. But I think he obviously felt very exposed, given the way we were defending at that point in the match. We got away with one there. John Craig's done all I suppose he could do, just getting himself back in and hoping the ball hits himself. So he did well, but we absolutely got away with one there.
Yeah, and I think much like the defender that blocked Kyle Doherty's header, it was very, very small margins. It's managed to hit John Craig, and if it's an inch either side, then Peterhead will go a goal up. And before the game, one thing I was saying to yourself was, I'm terrified if we lose a goal, because if we lose a goal, and quite rightly so, they would park the bus and protect what they would have. And even if we manage to scramble a draw out of it, it's still a great result for them, and one that wouldn't serve us well at all moving forward. So, we did ride our luck, especially in the first half, and we knew that changes were required at half time.
Yeah, and Jim did ring change at half time, not changes. and did bring on Darren Hines, slotted into the middle of the park and moved Ross Lyon to right back. And it did, I think, over the piece, settle us somewhat. It wasn't without scares. Again, I think the boy Fosu had another significant chance for the away side, in which I think everyone, certainly the Peterhead fans and management, thought he had put it away. I think most Clyde fans thought he had too, and we breathed an almighty sigh of relief when we realised that it was the side netting that the ball had hit. On the Clyde perspective, though, we didn't create as many kind of clear-cut chances, even if they were clear-cut chances in the first half. But what do you think worked better for us, Graham? Was it a case of that the defence itself was a bit more settled, or do you think that we improved in other areas as well? Collectively, it was a wee bit more of a team performance in the second half.
I think certainly the individual errors, they were still there, but they maybe weren't as frequent as what they were in the first half. I would also give Peterhead credit. I thought that they defended a little bit better in the second half as well. But when we moved Ross back to right back, we seemed to actually attempt at least to play the ball out from the back. I don't mean, from the goalkeeper, because that was, I think that was making me, lose my hair as much as Jim. So with that, when the ball came to Ross Lyon in the right back position, for example, he had his head up. He was looking for passes and looking to get the ball to the midfield and then break from there. There was some really good balls played down the channel to, Kyle Doughty, to the power of running, with a little reward in the game on Saturday, but he ran the channels really well. And our captain of the day, Ross Cunningham, on the other side, was doing a lot of good running there as well and getting us up the park in good areas. And from there, we got some decent possession in terms of free kicks and also corners, which has not been a strong point this season. The delivery possibly was akin to much of what we have been used to this season. But hey, we got a goal from it. But I think there was a little bit more emphasis from us in the second half. We cut out a fair percentage of the silly mistakes we're making in the first half. And even though it was still nervy, it maybe wasn't as nervy and self-inflicted as what it was in the first half.
Yeah, and obviously we did get the winning goal, which was perhaps maybe not fitting of some of the kind of quality of football that had been on show for the previous 81 minutes of the match. And it took, we just call it pure calmness from Martin Rennie in the box when he got the ball from a kind of second phase of a corner kick. And he twisted and turned his marker, I don't know how many times, it was at least 3, before waiting for that perfect moment to dink the ball in. And when he did it, it was judged to perfection, thankfully. And Cameron Salkeld bulleted home his first for the club with his head to send everyone in the homestand absolutely wild. What did you make of the goal, and not just it being delightful because it was a winning goal, but it was brilliant play, I thought, from Martin Rennie.
Oh, absolutely. And if he was listening to some of the screams from the stands, particularly around about us, then the screams of "What are you doing, Martin?" might have made them make another decision. But yeah, I mean, you've seen in the first half the technical ability that Martin Rennie's got, and some of the it's quite windy and wet on Saturday, and some of his first touches were sublime. So yeah, I think I'll just trust him to know when's the right time to deliver an inch perfect cross so that we can get a goal from it as well. So yeah, he's obviously left-footed, so he turned on his right foot a couple of times and realised he was going to turn back, but the defender didn't. So he managed, when looking back at the highlights, you could have thought he could have crossed it there, but the defender was a lot closer. When he did cross it, he had half a yard of space to cross that ball in. So that little bit of quality that he's got there, and not just that, the execution of it to get it, because it's not travelled that far. So to get that little bit of a big bit of quality there to pick out Cameron yeah, it was a rare moment of quality in the game, but one well worth waiting for.
And it's probably been our Achilles heel, I think, in the final third is making the right decision, is knowing when to release the ball, when to cross it. It would have been easy for Martin to take the easy way out, win another corner for the other side, take your chances, see what happens. But instead, he was incredibly patient, far more patient than probably I gave him credit for at the time. Perhaps that was what you were alluding to.
Not at all.
No, not at all. I was screaming for him to get it in earlier, but hey, I hold my hands up. I know nothing. I just sit here and pretend that I know. And it was just brilliant play. Cameron's did well. He's attacked the ball. It's aggressive. I think Big Eric Suller was right behind him, ready to hopefully do the same as well. So it couldn't have been more laid on a plate. And yeah, the scenes, I think you see what it meant to the players as well. Even the relatively the new guys, if you can still call them that, you could see what it means to them. So it was just, you could feel that moment that it was, we're nearly there, but there's still 10 minutes left of this game. If we can get this over the line, it is potentially pivotal for this season.
Yeah, and I think I've got to call out the fans on Saturday, because for the most part, they were absolutely tremendous. Okay, continuously trying to because we knew, obviously, the players know the importance of it as well, but it's not lost on the fans. I thought they were exceptional on Saturday and continuously giving them the backing, trying to get that extra bit of momentum from them. And yeah, I think from the reactions of the players, as you said, some gym signings there as well, but they looked as if they were players that had been feeling this since August, and the reactions from it showed that as well. They were ecstatic, but I think if we hadn't, or the fans hadn't given such a vociferous backing that day, then it might have just been a normal celebration. But yeah, they know where we are, they know why we're here, so the relief was shared with the players, with the celebrations, but obviously the fans loved absolutely every minute of the goal and obviously the final whistle.
And dare I say it, from what I can remember anyway, the rest of the 10 minutes was a bit of a blur, to be honest. My blood pressure must have been through the roof, but I don't remember us being under the cosh too much. Possibly the odd corner, but I think we dealt with it fairly well. We brought on Brian McLean, and his experience, I think he won every single header after he came on the park, and he certainly can help see us over the line. If anything, we certainly should have added a second just going into injury time. I, for the life of me, have no idea how the ball didn't go in. We've passed up 3 brilliant opportunities to put the game to bed there.
Yep. We did. I think you're spot on. I don't remember any squeaky bum moments in our defence after we'd scored and taken the lead. We probably worried more than the players did. Yeah, we conceded some possession, we conceded some corners, but at that point in time, I think they'd changed the formation as well, and they'd taken a lot of the physical element they had in forward areas off the park there as well. So we really weren't threatened after that, and because, and quite rightly so, Peterhead were pushing up the park. We broke on a couple of occasions, again through Curtis Roberts mainly, but yeah, we should definitely have sealed the game, and we done everything right. It's actually superb defending from the Peterhead defenders at the time. The goalkeeper, although not sure what he was doing in the first place, but he kind of redeemed himself after that as well. But yeah, 2-0 might have been a bit flattering, to be fair. It was always a 1-0 game, much like the game up at Balmoor. First goal's the winner, but unlike the game at Balmoor, I'm really, really happy it was us.
Absolutely. And yeah, thankfully it wasn't going to haunt us, and the run of 21 league games without victory is at an end, just one shy of a club record, and a record that nobody would ever want to see a Clyde team increase or match. So well done, boys.
Yep.
Now, As far as man of the match goes, I know we've mentioned it a few times. I think there is only one real candidate, and it's not to say that there weren't other good performances. I put it to you, Graham. That was Curtis Roberts' finest 90 minutes in a Clyde jersey.
Far and away. And I've got to... There's been times where I've looked, the Alloa away game, for example, when Alan Moore took temporary charge, I thought it was excellent that day, scored a great goal, and opened up a lot of things that we hadn't seen from Curtis. Now, he's been as guilty as anybody of, not performing at a level, but he's been continuously trying to drive the team forwards in every single game he's played, and sometimes he's suffered from trying too hard, in my opinion. Yeah. But he got it right on Saturday at the most important time there as well. He was exceptional. He was all over the place, and I just thought it was. I know it was his corner that led to the goal initially, but I think the only thing that was missing from his game on Saturday was actually scoring a goal. But he was phenomenal. He was all over the place. Peterhead didn't know how to handle him, and it's not without a fair bit of technical ability and skill there as well. It's not just running fast with the ball. The boy's a player, and it's something that if others took lead from him in every single game as well, he could maybe get more opportunities to show that the skill that he's got there and maybe chip in with a couple of goals. But absolutely a man of match performance, and one of the best individual performances we've seen from a Clyde player this season.
Yeah, to me, it was a leader's performance. It was, dare I say, it was a kind of captain's performance. That's not to detract from any other player, far from it. But he was determined that he was going to leave his mark in that game in a positive manner, and he was exceptional from first to last whistle. And I think the Clyde fans were more than appreciative of his efforts as they came off the park at the full-time whistle.
Yeah, and I've seen a couple of times where, obviously we've been disappointed at games. That Alloa game that I talked about earlier on as well. But you look at the players, and he was the one that always seemed to be hurting the most. The Dunfermline, Jim's first game in charge, leading 2-0 with not long to go, we lose 2 penalties, and he's raging. He's absolutely raging that we've kind of gifted. We've lost 2 points from gifts that we've provided. Still a great result away to the league leaders 2-2, but he cares, and I'll have 11 Curtis Roberts in my team moving forward.
There you go. Just need to get the corner machine out. Yep. Even. Now, on the back of Saturday's win, we caught up with the gaffer, Jim Duffy, to get a dugout debrief on the match, along with his thoughts on the impact of the January signings and those that were already there, as well as looking ahead to Saturday's trip to Meadowbank, his hopes for the rest of the season to come. And here's what the gaffer had to say. Joining me now, I am delighted to say, is Clyde manager Jim Duffy. Jim, welcome to the show. How are you?
Yeah, very well, thank you. Pleasure to be on the show.
So I, like everyone else connected with the club or that supports the club, a huge sense of relief come 5 p.m. on Saturday evening. And I would guess for yourself and the squad, it was a similar feeling.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been such a long time since we had a league victory, and the players have worked extremely hard over the last few months. They put a lot of good performances in. They've been a little bit unlucky once or twice, but you need a game for you to have those little breaks, and I think that's what happened on Saturday. I think we did still work extremely hard. We were really competitive, but we got 1 or 2 breaks. Almost every mistake we've made over the last few months we've been punished, whereas on Saturday we managed to get away with 1 or 2, and then we were the team that scored the late goal to get all 3 points. So yeah, I mean, it was probably more of a sense of I think we were due something rather than relief or euphoria. I was certainly not euphoric after the game, I can assure you that. It was more just a a sense. I think I was more delighted for the players because, as I said, they have been putting an awful lot of hard work in and maybe not getting their rewards.
Yeah, just for kind of context with the kind of the feeling within the dressing room, just how important do you feel just getting that monkey off her back with the win? The performances haven't, as you say, it's been touch and go. We've discussed it in the show in recent weeks about fine margins. Quite often it's been one mistake punished. I think if you look at the Airdrie game, probably being a perfect example of that. So just to get that win, no matter how ugly it may have been, and just get that monkey off her back and put it to an end. Just what do you think it could do now for the boys going forward?
Well, listen, football is about psychology. Any sports, you need to believe that you can get results, and you need to understand what it takes to get results. And sometimes it's about rolling your sleeves up and being competitive and being dogged and staying in the game and all these sort of things. I'm not really overly one for when people say that the small margins. I think football is about, at this level anyway, it's about being as competitive as you can be, and then the concentration is really the elements, and it's been lapses of concentration that have haunted us a few times. But as I said, from a coaching perspective and a manager, then what you want is players giving everything, trying to take on board what you're trying to do, and then try to implement them. And a lot of the games we've done that, and as I said, then there's been lapses of concentration, and that's when we've been punished. And Saturday, there was elements where it was good. There was elements where, we looked nervous, which is understandable. But as I say, but in those other moments, probably the first time for a long, long time, Peterhead didn't capitalise. But as I said, I think it's more psychological for the players. The fact that they've now got that one shows that they can win a game 1-0. They can be on the right side of the breaks, and all of those things. You've got to reinforce them week in, week out. If you're not getting those 3 points, the fact that Saturday should emphasise to the players that it can happen to them, provided they just keep working as hard as they've been doing. But at the same token, doesn't guarantee it, because every game in this division is ultra tough.
So looking at, sorry, Jim.
Right.
Looking at the kind of positives then from Saturday, obviously we kept ourselves in the game. Perhaps somewhat fortunate once or twice. However, we did create plenty of chances, certainly at the kind of start and tail end of the match. If we continue to make chances, we've got enough quality up front, and certainly from the supporting players in midfield now to at least get these goals when these chances do come to us.
Yeah, I mean, listen, football's about balance. As we get the right balance, you can make yourself a little bit more difficult to beat, but obviously then that restricts, the threat of going forward. You can be a little bit more open and take more risks. Of course, state the obvious, that leaves you a little bit more exposed at the back. It's about getting the balance right, and that's something that we've been searching for. There's been times where we've played, like against Falkirk at home and against Dunfermline, but we've been very positive and on the front foot, and we've created chances. But obviously, the fact that they've got really good players, so any space we've left, that's been exploited by them. So it's just been trying to get that balance right. On Saturday, as I said, it wasn't perfect, but there was parts of it that were better. The link-up play in the last couple of games, I don't think it's been great in the final third, Airdrie and Peterhead, but we've certainly been more resilient and had a more of a structure. It's been harder for the teams to break through us in those games. So, we've got to do it one bit at a time, try and get one part right, and try and make sure that stays there, so as we can then move on to the next part, rather than do a little bit of each of them. We've got to try and focus on one area, and what we've tried to focus on is getting a shape, a system, a structure, if you want to call it that, to make it difficult to beat, stay in the game, and then, as you said, if we can get the elements right in the final third, then I think we've got quality to win the games. But that just takes a little bit longer. The creative moments and those moments of calmness are what everyone's searching for, even if you've got a ton of money.
Yeah, and it was probably the one moment of calmness throughout the 90 plus on Saturday that did win the game. It was a touch of real class, I thought, from Martin Rennie. Although I will have to hold my hands up and say that I was one of the many who was saying, why is he not just putting the ball back in? But thankfully, he didn't listen to me because I know nothing. He took his time and he just waited for that perfect moment to put a delightful ball in. It was just screaming to be to put home, and thankfully for ourselves, Cameron duly obliged. It would have been easy for Martin to probably
Yeah,
just play for a corner there.
well, it could have played for a corner, could have thrown sometimes his right foot, but you got to remember that not just Peterhead, but the vast majority of teams have got big physical players, and unless you've got a towering 6'4" striker, there's no point in just floating a ball into the box. You've got to put the right type of ball in. It's either got to be in with pace, or it's got to eliminate those type of players. And what Martin done was he knew that if he checked on his right foot and threw a kind of flat ball in, all of those players were there. They were going to deal with that. You have to be very fortunate then to get across someone and just get a little flick. And even at that, there's no pace on the ball. So what Martin did was, thankfully, was take his time to manage to get closer to the byline, and then he could stand up at the back post. And then even doesn't matter how tall you are, if someone's got the run on you or someone's got the timing, which thankfully Cammy did, then you can come in and get in the end of it. So yeah, you need that little bit of time, a little bit of patience in those moments, and showed that. There's no doubt about that. Years are they're similar to supporters. Sometimes they throw balls in too early, or they play forward too quickly. The fans don't like to see passes and don't like to see too many slowing the game down. But sometimes you have to just put the brakes on. And as I said, that the one time we did do that on Saturday, we managed to score. Listen, you can't do it all the time. You've got to play with a real tempo. But in the key moments, you have to slow down and pick your moment. And that was something we managed to do on Saturday, and something we haven't done, too often.
Yeah, it's good that you mentioned that, because I was just about to ask you. I think a lot of the fans have been kind of talking and saying that quite often in the final third, it is just that decision making, maybe the final pass that's let us down so often. Probably going right back to probably the fourth game of the season onwards. So if we can get that to click, I think there's more than enough goals in this team to certainly make a real good stab at staying up one way or another.
Yeah, it's easier when you're winning games. I mean, when you're winning games, things are easier. When you're winning and you're on a roll, then these things come natural to you. When you haven't won, everyone tightens up a little bit. Everyone gets a little bit overexcited, and they rush things. So whether it's a cross or a final pass or a shot, everything just becomes a little bit more rushed. So that happens, I say, at all levels, and it's only winning football matches that naturally calms you down. Once you start to get a few goals, once you start to win a few games, then you start to do things without thinking about them. They just become natural. But when you haven't won games, then you start thinking, if you've got a chance to cross it, you start thinking in your head, I really need to get this ball in here. I really need to put more pace on it. Or I really need to miss out the first defender. And all of a sudden, you just tighten up that little bit and you don't execute it. And then the next time you get it, that's then exaggerated those thoughts. So therefore, and then when you get criticism from the manager, the coaches, or from the stands, everything just becomes that little bit more difficult. So when you win and you're winning matches, then everyone's a little bit more forgiving. As I said myself, as fans, if you're winning matches, everyone's a little bit more relaxed. So it's trying to get to that stage where we've won a few matches, everyone's a little bit more relaxed, as I've said, and then I think players will start to do things, in a more regular manner rather than just the odd time. But listen, on Saturday it was a pivotal moment. There's no doubt about that in terms of making the right choice. But as I said, we have to understand that we can play a lot better, and then hopefully trying to balance right again come Saturday between hard to beat, but making more of those choices more often come Edinburgh on Saturday.
So it was two of our new additions to the squad, two of the five that got the winning kind of combination for us on Saturday, Jim. How do you feel that the new guys have kind of settled in? That all five are already kind of key starting players within the squad, and how do you feel that they've complemented those that were already there?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was important to change things around. You know, what we had been doing before really wasn't good enough, and we know that. And as I say, that's not just down to the players that were there, of course. Everyone's got to take a share of responsibility, myself, the players, everyone. So, you know, we felt as if we need to freshen things up, maybe take on the negative, because if you've not won for a long time, sometimes that negativity is there. Even if you've got a good mindset, it's hard to shrug that aside. So try to bring players in with a freshness. People were keen to play. There was obviously a risk involved because all of the players we brought in had played regular football. So, you know, for one reason or another, whether they just went in the team or whether they'd been injured, like Cameron Salkeld, things like that, you know. So they hadn't played a lot of first team football. So getting them up to speed, but again, they didn't have an injury or you know, force them to play many minutes was all getting that balance right. But part of the reason we managed to get a couple of those players was because they haven't been playing on a regular basis. I think if they had been, I think it'd been difficult for us to attract them. Keen to come to get regular football.
Looking ahead now to Saturday and a trip to the capital to face FC Edinburgh, who are still very much in the mix for the promotion playoff spots, who are currently sitting fourth in Cinch League One. They're on somewhat of a poor run of results themselves at the moment, with their last win coming on the 2nd of January, I believe. But let's be very, very clear, they are a very dangerous side and they can score it well if they want, Jim.
No, I mean, listen, they're like all the sides in this division. You know, they've got some really talented players. You know, they've been up there challenging the whole season, near the top. So you know, even a mini in terms of matches, but you know they're still picking up points. They're still in the mix for the promotion playoffs. And I think if I'd have said to anyone at Edinburgh at the start of the season, they would have been delighted with that. You know, this situation. So yeah, I mean, it's going to be extremely tough for us to try and get the 3 points, but you know that's what we've got to try and do in every single match. We don't go into any game believing we haven't got a chance of winning. We get into every game believing we have got a chance. And as I said, and we've shown against the top two teams in particular that we can compete with the very best in this division. We need a level of consistency which Edinburgh have had, and we haven't. So we need to try and find some sort of consistency, and that's the next target for the players is can we build some sort of momentum? But the only way you can do that is be winning football matches.
Yeah, that leads me perfectly on then to what was going to be my next question then is, what are you now looking to kind of implement then for Saturday and beyond? Is it very much a case of making sure that we're in the best place possible, winning more often, etc., for at very worst a playoff spot? Obviously 8th is mathematically possible, however, I think unless the footballing gods were smiling on us very favourably, it would be quite an exceptional escape if we were to get 8th from this position. So for the rest of the season now, is it a case of let's get ourselves into a good place, winning more often, and let's tackle what comes?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's good to see that there's a bit of optimism there, particularly from yourself. But I think the reality is that we have to just try and get ourselves as many points as we possibly can. Try and finish above Peterhead. That's the main objective at this moment in time. And it's exactly what you said there. if you can go into the playoffs at the end of the season and a good run of form where a bit of confidence, that would be the situation we look at just now. If by a miracle we can close the gap on anyone above us, then great. That would be something that we would love to dream about. But I think that we'd be very naive if we started looking after 1-1 against Peterhead, and very arrogant as well. And that's something that we're absolutely not. We're realistic. We know how tough this division is. Every team is playing for something. There's still probably 6-7 teams that believe they can get in the playoff. There's us and Peterhead who are fighting at the bottom to try and stay away from the bottom and finish in the second bottom position. And there's very, very few teams that have. I don't think there's any team really that would just consider themselves just to see the season out. So we just want to try and get as many players as we can on board. Try and get some sort of level of consistency. Try and get a little bit more of cohesion about the team in terms of the gap between playing well and playing poor is less. So if our standards drop, they drop a little bit. They're not extreme. We're not playing really well like we did at periods against Falkirk and Fairman, and then dropping standards. So when we maintain a level of performance, I think if you maintain a good level of performance, then you'll get better results on a more consistent basis. But as I've said before, you also have to take into consideration the quality of the team that we're playing. They are very good sides. This is probably the toughest Division 1 probably in the last 20 years, maybe. With the standard of clubs that are in it, and the quality of the clubs and the budgets. So it's extremely tough. But for me, it was something I wanted to take, have that challenge. But it's certainly a lot tougher challenge than I think any of us thought it would be, maybe, even at the start of the season.
Yeah, I think we've mentioned it numerous times on the show, Jim, that you could probably lift 4 or 5 from this league, drop them into the Championship, and they would probably fancy their chances to be at the top end of that league as well on budgets and playing squad. So it's a sizable.
Two of them were in there last year. Yeah, as I said, two of them. Like them, Fairman and Queen of the South. Falkirk's been in there for a few years now. Airdrie's are the hybrid side, but they've got some real quality in the players. And then if you look at the other teams, the teams have been promoted from Division 1 in recent years. Whether it's Cove, teams like that, they've got exceptional players. They've got real commitment to progress. They've got good financial backing, which always helps stability in their clubs. All of those things are vital. But the clubs you mentioned, and that's not to even mention the clubs like Montrose and Alloa and teams like that who are extremely well run part-time clubs. So listen, we know that there is, but we can all look at ourselves. There's no point in looking with jealousy at other clubs. We've got to look and see where we are with the quality of players that we have, with the budget that we can deal with, and then say, right, make us the best we can be with our resources. That's a point looking. Just got all we have to do is be the best we can be with our resources. As I said, and as I said, I think the players are working hard. I think they're giving everything. I think they're playing for the jersey. They are making some errors at times, and that's something that we're trying to can't say eliminate, but certainly reduce. And as I said, if you can get away with 1 or 2 like we did on Saturday, then that's football for you. And then you start to think, oh, maybe it will be our day, rather than another mistake. Every time we make a mistake, we seem to get punished, as I mentioned earlier. So maybe we feel maybe the tide has turned, but it can only turn if you keep working hard to try and achieve it.
Yep, and the one thing that is guaranteed, I think especially after Saturday, that the Clyde faithful that are heading through to the capital will be doing so with a more of a spring in their step following the positive result against Peterhead. Do you have a quick message just for the Bully faithful ahead of Saturday and obviously for the remainder of the season?
Yeah, I mean, I think Clyde fans deserve an enormous amount of credit. It's easy to support teams who are, at the top of the league all the time, and signing top players, and get the financial muscle that a lot of clubs have got. But when your club has been fighting at the bottom of the league all season, and your fans are still sticking with you, that's fans deserve a tremendous amount of credit for that. It's easy to turn your back on your team, but the Clyde fans have certainly not done that. They've been right behind the team. They've been given a great vocal support. It was a great response to the one on Saturday. Listen, I let the players enjoy it. As I said, as a manager, you have to then just focus straight on you've got to analyse it. You've got to and deal with it. But for the fact, togetherness with the players after the game. So yeah, I mean, all credit to the fans for giving the players that credit after the game, because it helps the players. There's no doubt about it. It makes them feel better, makes them feel appreciated, and I think the fans as well feel appreciated when the players go to them as well. So listen, it's reciprocal, and you've got a good togetherness between the supporters and the fans. Then it can only help the players. There's no doubt, and from my perspective, it's all about trying to get the best from the players, and the fans can play a massive part in that from now to the end of the season.
And I'm absolutely certain that they will do exactly that, Jim. Now, thank you so much for taking some time out to come and speak to us. It greatly is appreciated, Jim. The best of luck, obviously, for Saturday and, of course, for the remainder of the season. So, Graham, let's now turn our focus to Saturday and a trip to the capital to face an FC Edinburgh side who themselves have went on a bit of a run without a win. Not quite the same level as we have recently been on. They are 5 now without a win. The last victory for the capital side was a 5-3 away victory to Airdrie. They did come close just the last time out away to Montrose with only an injury time free kick levelling the game at 3-3. That being said, they are still in the promotion playoffs, currently sitting 4th in Central League 1 and have won both of the games against the Bully this season, both with a scoreline of 2-0. We know the challenge that awaits us. So, Graham, what do we need to do to make it 2 in a row?
So obviously we need to be buoyed by Saturday's result. We need to take some of the individual performances and carry it forward. We also know more than anybody, even more so than Peterhead, that when you get in a run of losses, it can make you a little bit more cautious, a little bit more safe, but also a little bit more fearful of what can happen. And we've also demonstrated on numerous occasions that the teams up towards the top end of the table we tend to perform better against. So it could be a good time to be playing them, is what I'm trying to say. The 2 games, again, individual errors, not taking chances, dare I say, maybe one questionable refereeing decision at the game at New Douglas Park. But there's not much between the teams. They've just come up. They've had a tremendous season coming up from the lower league. So all credit to them. They've got a massive advantage of home advantage in the way that it's set. It's set out there. Let's be honest. It suits them. It probably doesn't suit many others. But we have to be confident in the fact that we're looking to get a result. Now, whether that's a point or even 3 points, we're probably getting them at the best time. And hopefully there's not any, I don't think there's any injuries coming off from Saturday.
I believe.
Yeah, so apart from our long-term injuries like Ryan Mullen and obviously Connor Duffy, we're looking at having selection issues. Who can we play? And we brought in the signings that Jim brought in January have all had an impact at times as well. So we're looking like we've got a bench that can change the shape of a game and improve it if it's not working out with the starting 11 there as well. So we've got options. We've got a victory. We're not getting carried away because it's not been a great season. But we're now looking at some players that when they first came in were lacking a little bit of match fitness, but we had the break there as well with the cup, and they're looking fitter. They're looking more ready to go. And one thing that we all know, as Jim was saying there, that we're going to be hard to beat. So with that, yeah, it might be a good one to take the coupon.
So as far as what Edinburgh bring to the party, John Robertson, what is it, that name in Edinburgh clubs that just seems to be a bit of a marriage made in heaven? He's probably been the only real difference for me in the two games. I think he's probably the top goal scorer. If not, he must be close to it. He's the key man for the Capital side, and probably dealing with him will be a big decider as to how the game pans out.
It will be, but I think as well, we've got to look after ourselves. We've got to win our individual battles. I know it's cliches and we say it time and time again, but I think, if you look at the combative nature of our midfield now, with Cameron and Curtis in there, and the fact that, the Airdrie game, the Dunfermline game, and the performance of Curtis on Saturday against Peterhead, we can get some cheap possession, and we've got some pace now that we can exploit teams on the break. And I know that was how we kind of set out at the start of the season, but it didn't quite work out. We've now got a bit of experience, a bit of nous up front, and in the middle of the park where, we can break, but there's more of a possibility of an end product coming from it. And, we weren't the best defensively on Saturday at times as well, but every single one that played across the back, 4 or 5, from start to finish, they can only get better. And as the game wore on, they were looking a lot more solid. So I'll take the defensive performance that we had against Dunfermline, against Airdrie, and hope to get a repeat of that. I'll take the midfield performance of Cameron Selkirk against Airdrie, and obviously Curtis's performance against Peterhead, and hope we get a kind of marriage of all of that. And if we can get 5 or 6 of players that we've seen since Jim's taken over, and also since they've came in, that are capable of changing games and capable of letting us have a little bit more attacking threat there, then I don't see why we can't do something and hopefully just get some distance. Because you're right, we're 3 points clear, but a Peterhead win brings it quite close back together. We still have to play them as well, but we need to start looking up. And Boyce was saying last week, 8's pretty much out of reach. But let's try and get as close to that as possible. And by doing that, we could then create a little bit of distance and not have to worry about automatic relegation. And we can just look to see if it is 9th place that we're going to a playoff with 3 or 4 different teams, but with a bit of confidence and with a bit of a playing style that the players are used to, and that we can take into games with a bit of confidence.
Yeah, something that's bringing results. As simple as that. If you're going into a playoff on the back of much improved performances and a run of victories and even just draws, where we were seeing defeats, you're going in a much better mindset regardless. And hey, who knows? Something that the footballing gods may just smile on us, and someone goes on a horrific run above us and we sneak up on them in the last day of the season. That's the hope.
Well, the thing is, the majority of these players that we've got now, They've not won a game apart from Saturday. So, I mean, you're looking at Neil, Brian McLean, Ross Lyon, Barry Cudahy, or the starting Ross Cunningham. That's a third of the team. So the rest of the guys, some have been in the team a little bit longer and had to endure this horrible run. And a lot of times with it there as well, there've been some decent performances. And I'll include Curtis in that as well, because he wasn't featuring that much at the start of the season as well. So he's really come into his own and made that position his own as well. But let's see how they feel. Let's see how that massive weight has been lifted off their shoulders and how they perform at the back of that. Is certainly, it's not game over. You know, I mean, they've not won anything. But let's see if there's a little bit more of a spring in their step and less fear of what's to come moving forward, because we have shown, even against the best team in the division, which in my opinion is Dunfermline, but closely followed probably by Falkirk. See if we take the shackles off a little bit, we can compete in games. We can compete in games. We've proved that. And now, dare I say it, from the start of the season, I like the look of the team on Saturday as well. It was probably, if I was to write down every player that featured this season, with the possible exception of Jordan, I like the look of the team. I like the way they've been set out. I like the way we play. I like the aggression. So they've now got a victory. Let's see if the team that I like so much like themselves a little bit more and can take that onto the park on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, I can't obviously speak for the players, but just looking at the boys as they left the game, the ground, on Saturday, I'd obviously been weighing on them, and they did look just not just relieved, but delighted with it, and as they should be. They're the guys that got the job done. We were just there to play supporting roles, and as you mentioned earlier, I thought the fans were absolutely terrific in making sure that the boys got over the line. And on that note, that then probably brings us to Saturday, and obviously safe travels to all those that are making the journey through to back the boys. And I have absolutely no doubt that you will do so magnificently once more. So let's be that 12th man again, and let's go for 2 in a row. And hopefully that means next week that I can sit in front of this mic and this camera, smiling once more, not through gritted teeth, but through genuine joy on the back of another Clyde victory. So Graham, thank you very much for your time. Thank you as well to the gaffer, Jim Duffy, for taking time out to give us his thoughts. Really does, it helps us put out some content for the fans, and it is greatly appreciated. So until next time, come on the Bully Wee.
Come on the Clyde.